you know, this is when I'm thinking about you. And I just was prepared to die, and everything just starts hitting us again, really, really hard. And unfortunately, I look over and I see Dominic, and he's trying to like kind of stand up, and then all of a sudden he turns toward me, and just this big slab of concrete comes in, hits him. I kind of see him to sit down, but it's just dark. It's raining again, raining concrete. It's I can't see, and again it's all dusty, and everything stops again. It's the weirdest thing. Like this horrific sound, this powerful force coming on us, hurting us, and then everything just stops completely, like silence. It's crazy. And when everything stops, I have to wait a couple minutes. Light starts coming through that hole again. And as I look over, I look at Dominic. I can see him bleeding profusely. And I'm in a lot more pain. Now Sergeant McLaughlin is actually yelling. Because at this point, now he is being crushed to the point where his sidearm, as you police officers, our sidearms will stick off our body a little bit because of the leather. It's actually being pushed into his body. That's how much pressure is on there. And he's yelling just in a horrific way, just painful yells. And not that mine weren't, but I just remember his was just like, oh my God. Yeah. And I look over and Dominic's coughing. And I'm like, oh, Dom. He goes, Willie, I'm dying. And I said, please hold on. That's all I could say. I didn't even have the smart or the wit about me to say, hey, bro, grab your cell phone. He had a cell phone in his pocket. I never even thought about that. And I think about that a lot of times. I don't know if it would have made a difference because there was no comms that night, but he was dying. And he said, Willie, I love you. And he says to me, don't ever let anybody forget I died trying to save you guys. I said, Dominic, I would never let anybody, and I share this story with everybody every time I talk. And he actually asked for a break. He says, Sarge, can I get a 3.8? And I remember thinking to myself, what the fuck, man? You're asking for a break. And I don't know where that came from, but Sergeant McLaughlin actually stopped his yelling and said, yeah, you can have 3.8. Oh he told me at that point, like, because we can't see him. He's like several feet on the other side of this concrete. I can hear him, but I can't see him. He knew something bad had happened. And at that point, Dominic's dying. And in his last moments, he actually rocks his sidearm out and he points to that hole that's above us and he fires around in a last ditch effort, like, because we don't know what's going on, like to say, hey, we're down here. And he just slumps over and he dies right like from me to this window. And that was rough. I mean, I started, honestly, I remember just being hysterical, yelling, Dom's gone, Dom's gone. And Tom McLaughlin, God bless him, he said, you need to calm down. You need to reserve your energy. And he said, don't look that way. Just concentrate, look straight ahead. And after a little bit, wow, he's like, what can you do? I said, I can't do nothing. I can't move. The only thing I had exposed was my sidearm and my first initial handcuffs, my first cuffs. So he's like, well, you got to try to do something. And lucky I got a big mouth. So I just kept yelling, PAPD, officers down, PA, again, hoping somebody above would hear us. Nothing. So I remember Sergeant McLaughlin, I'm asking him as time progresses, I said, Sarge, what are we looking at here? And he was dead honest. He's like, listen, we're going to suffer from compartment syndrome. And I never heard of that. He's like, basically, we're being crushed. Our bodies are going to start dying. The muscle's going to die. And if they don't get to us by a certain time, we're just going to die here.
And you hear him, you can totally hear him.
I can
like
hear
you
him.
And me now.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit through the concrete.
Muffled, yeah. But you can't see anything.
No, I can't see him at all. He's behind, like, you could be behind that wall. That's, right. It's all concrete. And it's right. All crushed concrete. It was crazy.
But do you have a sense that he's in more shape than you are?
I just knew he was yelling. Really, it hurt me to hear his screams. And I would yell. We were both yelling. So I kept yelling. And then I said, I got to try to do something to get out of here. Although, just imagine Andre the Giant laying you. You ain't moving. Right. That's the way it was. So I started realizing we were swelling up. Like my hands were starting to swell. So I grabbed my handcuffs. And by then, it's very hard to describe to people. Just imagine you just lifted weights and to peak till you're burnt out, where your arms are just hanging. That's how we felt. So for me to raise my arm and come down would take me 15, 20 minutes. That's how exhausted right away I was. And I would grab my handcuffs and I would try to hit the concrete. And it would, and after a while I put them down and I couldn't find them because I lost feeling. Wow. So I kept doing that. As time progressed, these fireballs start falling in. And they're falling in through this hole. And like I said, I feel more comfortable with bad guys than fire. And all of a sudden these fireballs are coming. Just imagine you're scared of fire and they're falling in and they're starting to roll toward you. And they started burning me. You could see where they started burning my skin. And I'm like, I'm going to die. And I'm yelling, Sarge, I'm going to burn. I'm going to burn alive. He's like, just try to put him out. So I would grab dirt and try to put it out. And again, going back to the film, they were doing all the 3D diagrams as to what happened. And it answered some questions for me and John because we kept saying, well, we don't know how these fireballs put themselves out. They were saying that there was a big wind coming up from underneath the Trade Center. I don't know if that's true or not, but somehow these fireballs would get close to me, start burning me, and then they start fading away. And this kept on going for a while, and this was really bad. Like, this is bad.
How long you under?
This is like over an hour, and these fireballs are coming in. And I know what it is. It's jet fuel. Being in the military, I was on an LPH carrier as a gunner's mate on there. We carried helicopters. So we knew what jet fuel was. We had to fight jet fuel with foam. We went through all that firefighting training in the Navy. So I knew this was bad, and you knew the smell of jet fuel. So this continued for a while. And then all of a sudden, I'm laying there, and I hear pow, 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 pow. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I see sparks over my head. When I look, Dominic's weapon is now firing. And the remaining 15 rounds are shooting in there, and they're flying over my head. They're sparking. So all I could do was take my hand, put it over my face, and hope that if a round hit me, my hand would stop. But I knew better than that. I mean, we were carrying hollow points. It was going to go through my hand. And I don't even know how to describe this. Like, I'm sitting there just waiting to die, and I'm still alive when the gun stops. Sergeant McLaughlin's, what's going on? I said, fucking gun just went off. And I remember just having to calm myself down. It took a little while to calm myself down because I'm like, I just got shot at. The round, the gun, the way it was positioned was shooting up in an angle. And how it didn't hit me, it's a miracle. I mean, they were just shooting right above me. And I was just waiting to die. And that stopped. And I had to compose myself. Sergeant McLaughlin kept telling me to compose myself and conserve energy. Because you're going to have to conserve energy. If you use too much energy, you're going to die. Your body's just going to give out. So I try to conserve energy. I kept trying to rock my gun out because we have a 3-point system to get the gun out. Back then, we carried Smith & Wesson's 5946. They were like boat anchors. But one of the things we had, because we're at the Port Authority, is if you're ever rolling around with a perp and they grab your gun, you can dislodge the magazine. Even though there's a live round in the chamber, it will not fire those guns. So I couldn't rock the gun out. So the next big thing I could do was dislodge the magazine. So now I had the magazine. So I tried to use that as a hammer. And again, I got tired. I put it down. Then I couldn't find it. A couple hours later, I was able to rock the gun out. I was able to go. And I just remember just so exhausted. I point the gun, because you're not thinking right. I point the gun out and I pull the trigger, nothing. Because the gun doesn't fire without the magazine. I can't find the magazine. So I'm like, motherfucker. So I grabbed the gun and literally it became a hammer. I must have maybe only swiped 3 times. I put the gun down. I can't find it. Everything felt like concrete. They later.
And the reason why you want to shoot the gun up because you want to let people know you're there.
Yeah, I'm trying to let somebody
and is
hear
John,
me.
Is he telling you to do that? I mean, are you guys
No,
talking about...
he's just saying keep trying to notify people up there. I just kept saying PAPD officers down, PAPD officers. And there was nothing above us. Nothing. You heard nothing.
And the fact that you heard nothing, you know that nobody heard you.
Yeah, but I just kept trying because I'm like, I got to keep trying, right? It could be somebody's got to be there because, again, I don't know what's going on above us. And so I figured if I can get and shoot the gun, maybe someone will hear us, but it was no use. And I put the gun down and same thing, I lost it. When they found me that night, all the tools were right there. They had everything right there. I just couldn't feel it. And as time progressed, it got worse. We could smell encroaching fire, and I guess it was around, I don't know what time, but I hear gunfire above us. I mean, pow, 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 pow. Apparently, I think it was Building 7. There was an armory there. The feds had an armory there, so rounds were cooking off. So in our minds, we're thinking, oh my God, our cops are in a fight with the terrorists. We're thinking we're getting invaded at this point because it sounds like an ongoing firefight. I remember saying the silliest thing. I said, Sarge, I said, if there's a terrorist that comes above the hole, I'm going to try to shoot him. I'm talking shit now, but I'm thinking if I see one, I don't care if I die, if they throw a grenade, I'm going to kill one. That's my mindset. Like, we got to fight back.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm thinking, man, we're out of the fight here.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're just trying to survive. And as time progressed, it got late that night. And I remember when I think it was Building 7 fell, I heard that same sound of like a building coming down. and fear just all over. Oh my God, but it was further out. But I'm like, something else fell, or something happened, another bomb. And I remember just as time progressed that night, and this is what I tell people, and like you said, my story, I don't feel it's my story. I think it's a human story. That's how I feel. It's just a human story that I'm sharing with people. And we were blessed to have people make that film. We could talk about that later, but um, I just want people to understand that I'm no different than anybody. I'm the same as you. I cry the same. I smile the same. I have the same fears a lot of people do. I'm just a human being. And at that point that night is the most important to me and pivotal point of our survival was um, I wanted to die. I just wanted to give up. I was so tired. I was in so much pain. We had lost my friends. And I made my peace with God. And I tell people I'm Catholic. I don't preach religion. I tell people I don't preach religion. But what I'm going to tell you is being Catholic, my mom always instilled three words in me: faith, hope, and love. Always have faith in your religion. And I tell people that are not religious, if you don't have a religious faith, that's fine. But have faith in yourself. Hope. We got to have hope no matter how bad a situation is. I've heard people say, oh, hope's a bad thing because it makes. No, hope is a good thing. As a human being, you should always hope to be better, to reach your goals, to survive, and love. Love for yourself so you can spread love to others. And at that point, I kept thinking about that. But then I said, I'm ready to die. I knew what was going to happen because I said, nobody could hear Sergeant McLaughlin. He was further back. You couldn't hear him. But I just made my peace with God that night. I said, God, thank you for 33 great years. Thank you for 6 years married to Allison, 4 years with my little girl, Bianca. My parents, thank you for bringing me this great country. Thank you for raising me to be a good person. And I kind of came to peace with, if I died today, I die as an American, as a good human being, as a cop trying to do the right thing. And I was okay with that because I felt everybody was going to go to heaven that day. Because as I call them the terrorists, I call them the cowards. Attacking innocent human beings for no reason. It wasn't even military. I felt everybody was going to go to heaven. And I said, God, I'm going to ask you for two things. When I get to heaven, like I said, I felt everybody was going, was one is to let me see my little girl be born. We were expecting my little girl be born in December. And I said, God, I just want to be there because I know it's going to hurt Allison for me not to be there. And the second thing, and I tell people you can laugh, I said, God, when I get to heaven, man, can I have a glass of water? I was so thirsty. It was crazy. I mean, we were caked in concrete. My lips all night long was dry. I remember at one point, uh, there was a piece of rebar or something. I touched it and like, I think it was oil that came. I touched my lips and I was like, oh my God. I was just so thirsty.
In that conversation that you were having, that sacred conversation, you're a man of faith and you prayed a bunch in your life. Was there a different clarity in the way that you were speaking
There
with
was.
God?
Well, I've always had a relationship. I tell my mom, my mom always taught me just be able to talk with God, and I do. And I've always learned not to ask for things that, like I watched the show Survivor, and I get really kind of ticked off when I see people talking, God help. No, this is not what you pray to God
Yeah,
for.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's still as
Yeah,
important things.
yeah.
And I've always had a relationship. Like I learned, like if I played soccer, don't pray to win the soccer game.
Yeah.
Don't. Those are silly
Yeah.
things. I mean, have a real, and it's from my heart. And I just said, God, I said, those two things I ask you for, and I close my eyes. And I tell people, I don't know if it's a dream, a vision, whatever you want to call it. Some people say that's a miracle. And in a way it is. But I closed my eyes and I was going to give up, bro. And all of a sudden, the peace came over me. That's all I could say, just peace. And I see a person walking toward me, no face, a white glowing robe. Over his left shoulder was in the distance a pond, just tranquil, trees around it, very tranquil. Over his right shoulder was tall, endless sea of grass. And he's walking toward me, and everything's just peaceful. And as he's walking toward me, and I tell people, you can laugh. What does he have in his hand? He's got a bottle of water. I don't know if it was Poland Spring or Avion or some of that fancy stuff that they showed us in the movie. I forgot whatever the stuff is. But I wake up out of that dream, that vision, with a fire in my heart. And I just at that moment, I realize if I give up on my sergeant because nobody's going to hear him. If I give up on my family because I didn't fight hard enough to get to home to them. If I give up on my country. But at that moment, what I realized the most, and I share this with people, if I give up, I'm giving up on myself, and they win. And at that moment, I said to Sergeant McLaughlin, we're going to get the out of this hellhole, or we're